Hi, let's do the book confession tag. This was a tag that was created by Becky at Book Reviews with Becky, and I was tagged by Jess Book Girl TV, Jessica at Jess Book Girl TV. And let's get into these confessions. Number one, what is an unpopular book opinion / preference you have? A preference that I have is I really prefer criticism versus popularizing. I guess kind of book influencer versus someone who is engaging in criticism of books. I mean, I don't mind people who are enthusiastic about books and want to talk just want to talk about the books that they love, but I think the way that I interact with art and that I find valuable to listen to other people talk about is people who kind of dig into works and really talk about what worked for them, but also what didn't work for them. And so it's not just, it's not a kind of a blanket, this was a great book, but this was a great book because of this, and this, and maybe this bugged me, or I didn't understand this, or this confused me. Because it's really engaging with the work. I think it's why I'm always puzzled why people, and just in general, there's a strong segment of kind of the general public and of artists who take against critics for engaging with their work in a way that just isn't blanket approval. To me, the most fertile way to have an ecosystem where art is made is to have an audience that is responsive and discerning and kind of disinterested in the sense of I'm going to parse away all the kind of the extraneous stuff and I'm just going to look at that work and I'm really going to passionately react to that work, and it's not going to be all yay, it's going to be yay and what the hell's that, and and this dissatisfies me and this is amazing and this worked and why did it work that way. So that I think might be slightly going against the tide with kind of a general, more just sort of celebratory atmosphere, which is fun, but I don't know if it's that deep, or it doesn't itch my scratch. I'm somebody who niggles at work. I like to niggle, I like to pick it apart. That's part of my enjoyment. And sometimes I think people look at me doing that and they think that I'm not enjoying it, or they see critics who, really have, I mean, I have such a narrow little pool of experience, and limited expressive skills. But when I see a critic who can really kind of pull apart a work and give me a bigger context for it, who can reveal things that I never even considered in the work, that is valuable. I think that's valuable for me as an audience, and that's valuable for writers, even if they're sometimes highly resistant to that. Number two, has your reading taste changed over the years, and how? Most definitely. I mean, I think back to childhood, it was just maybe more pure escapism, a lot of fantasy, a lot of science fiction. Then I went through my self-serious 20s or late teens or 20s where it's like, oh, I'm just going to read important stuff. I'm going to read literature because I have to become a smart person. And then, I gave up on that. I'm never going to be a smart person. And now by this point, there's much more kind of a mix of fantasy and lit fics and nonfiction and much more older works and, romance even. I feel like I've diversified as I've gotten older. I've gotten more stuff in there, which is nice. Number three, what genre do you read to get out of a book slump? I always read, so I've never really experienced a book slump. I mean, you always get periods where I have less energy or I have less, I'm just not feeling something. And a part of that, I think I just having a wide variety of genres or types of reading to do really helps with that. I'll get into kind of nonfiction. I find that I really am a fiction person. So most of the time I'll read nonfiction and then I'll be like, oh, I want to get back into some nonfiction. I just can't, I need my made up story. And then there's sometimes like when I want something, I'm up for the serious literature, which is, denser or more difficult. And there's other times I just want very kind of light genre-y work. Some romance has been really helpful for when I've been not feeling that great. Just very light, kind of light, but actually still extremely well written stuff. Just because something's light doesn't mean it can't be also really, really well written. And I found that with Kate Healy and stuff. Who's going to come up later in this thing? What is some of your favorite auto-buy authors? And I would say at the moment, one of those authors is Kate Healy, whose Olympic Ink series, which are all using the characters from the Greek pantheon of gods, but instead it's a contemporary romance where they're the Zeus owns the big publishing house, and it's very much kind of a kind of a world set in there. So I've got Persephone in Bloom, Aphrodite Unbound, Hera Takes Charge, Ask Cassandra. I found I actually, maybe because I was in that, I need something to read that's well written but easy to read. I actually went through that series, which is actually quite rare for me. Most of the time I'll read one book by an author because maybe I'm a slow reader, and I'll be like, okay, that's enough. I will now put you down for a year and then I'll come back. But no, this, I just kind of went woof, 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 went through them really quickly. So that's definitely somebody who's in the, I guess, the auto buy at the moment. I would definitely go back to her. Number 5, how many chances do you give an author before you won't try them again? I think that depends. If it's just the writing style, it might be just a one and done. I did find my go-to example is Jonathan Safran Foer. I really disliked his Extremely Loud, Incredibly Close. It was a 9/11 novel, which I just found really saccharine and just really bugged me on a lot of levels. But I did go back and read a nonfiction work by him, Eating Animals, which is, how we treat animals, the industrial kind of process of that we use, and how horribly we are treating animals and probably ourselves through this system, the dangers of that system. I still had kind of issues with that book, but that was like, oh, okay, that was a way better experience reading it. I think, like, if I'm reading a nonfiction book and I find that you're untrustworthy, then yeah, you're done almost immediately. I won't even finish the book. So yeah. If I've been reading an author for a while and it's been good, and then I hit out what for me is a real clunker, I will probably come back to them again, but I'll kind of come at them gingerly with tongs to just examine the book from the outside first before I'll go back in and give them another try. Probably at that point I'll give them one more try, and then I'll just give up from there. Number 6, do you have anything you like to do / listen to while you read? And I'd say no. I'm very lucky that I live in a quiet house with a quiet spouse, and I have the luxury of not having to kind of use sound as a barrier. And I find, for the most part, I just want to focus on the writing. I don't having something playing in the background is that saps my my concentration of whatever concentration that I have. Number 7, how far do you read before DNFing? Speaking of evolution over time, it was probably like 100 pages earlier on in my reading life, but it's probably shrunk down like 50, maybe 25. I'm nowhere near. I think of Sean Breathe's books, formerly Sean the Book Maniac. I think he claimed he could basically read the first sentence and be like, I'm out right there. And it's like, no, I'm not at that level. Actually, I think about it nowadays, with the advent of the ebook, it'll be like, okay, I'll get the sample and I'll read the sample, and I can that's probably enough to go, okay, this book isn't for me. And I don't know if I even count that as DNFing because I just have the sample. So that's probably also about 25 pages. So that's probably long enough to judge a book that way. I have had the case just recently. I was reading War and Peace, and won't give you my entire review of War and Peace in this art thing, but at the very end of War and Peace, there is the final epilogue part, which if this had come early in the book, I might have thought about DNFing the book because I'd be afraid I was going to encounter more of that. But at the very end of this book, so it's like I'd read like 1,000+ pages and I'd gotten to this part, and it was like, I'm going to finish this. Screw you, Tolstoy. I am not DNFing your book at like 1,000+ pages. So I bowled my way through and I got to the end. So I guess that's the I've invested all this. I've invested a couple of months reading your book. I will get through. But if it had been another part in the book, that would have been tough. That would have been tough. So yeah, it definitely does matter where you find your sticking points. The point where it's like, oh, I hit the sludge. And for War and Peace, it's the sludge is at the end, in my opinion. Do you ever find yourself making the same faces as the characters in books? No. I think sometimes if there's a description of an action or kind of a gesture, and I'm trying to like, what the hell gesture is that? They're trying to like, they're trying not to say, to tell us, they're trying to show us how the character is emoting. And sometimes I'll try and figure out what the hell it is. Half the time it's not. It's like I still haven't figured out what the hell how the character is in that moment. But that's probably about it. And that's more conscious trying to figure it out. Number 9, rereads. Yes, no, depends. I do reread. I don't reread as much as I would like to, due to being a slow reader. I feel that pressure to get on to something new. But when I do reread, I really enjoy it. You get another experience out of the book. You get to meet a younger self, which could sometimes be disconcerting. You get to read it in a different time if you get to be jeezily old like myself, where it's like, I've read a book in the 80s as a young person who was probably just very accepting of whatever attitudes and beliefs were on display in there. I think of someone like reading a lot of Robert A. Heinlein or Piers Anthony or stuff like that, where I just sucked them up. I just sucked up these books, and I, as a young guy, I did not think at all one way or the other about what I was being fed at the time, and I turned out this way. So we all know how that goes. The last reread I did was of Bk Cnfssn's The City We Became, which is the first in a series, and I've never gone on to the second. And rereading it this time, I can see why I probably didn't go on to reread it again, to read the rest of the series. But it was also just sort of worth it to go back and kind of answer that question of why not? Because she is definitely a really good writer. I just haven't found the book that's carried me along enough to continue with some of her series work. So that is the book confession tag. Thank you, Becky, for creating this tag. Thank you, Jessica, for tagging me. I really enjoyed kind of working through all that stuff. You should definitely check out her channel. She has a video for, I think, Autism Awareness Month, recommending a couple of books and also talking about growing up with Asperger's. So it's a really good, really interesting, good video on that. It gives you a different perspective. And I will tag Angie at Angie's Reading Life, who I heard about on Kelly's channel, Books I'm Not Reading, with somebody else who both of these channels do amazingly short, concise videos that put everything that they need to say into little short components versus myself who just natters on and on and on. So thank you if you made it this far in the video for spending all of your time here. And go off and check their channels where you'll get a lot more in a lot shorter time. All right, more videos later.